Welcome to Empowered by Iron, the podcast for female strength athletes by female strength athletes. We are your hosts, Dr. Kristen Lander from Fiercely Fueled Nutrition Coaching and Dr. Mary Morton, scientist and weightlifter. Together, we are Empowered by Iron. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Empowered by Iron. This week, we have a second installment of Mythbusters. Batman. Well, no. That's the only song that would come into my mind. But last time we did this episode, you all really liked it. And we really enjoyed recording it because there's a lot of shit out there and we need to muddle through it together. So today we have 3 other questions that we got from you all. We asked on our Instagram and our Facebook any questions that you had, and we kind of picked 3 of the ones that we felt really needed to be addressed. Don't worry if your question wasn't answered. We will do another one of these. We really enjoy them. If you hear some nonsense in the gym or your family member says something really stupid to you and you're not sure if it's true, just hit us up. Call the Mythbusters. We will answer these questions for you. Hey, Kristen.
What's up, Mary? I'm super excited for this. These are my favorite episodes. They're so fun.
I love them. A little touch of bro science mixed with a lot of facts.
Yeah.
Do I sound like a reporter? Hello.
So you're going to kick this one off for us with a question that we got. Steffi had heard that she said, I think she said some shit. About some shite. Yes, because she's Scottish. Scottish? She's Scottish, right? Yeah.
We're sorry,
some
Stephanie.
shite. Okay. So she heard basically that like muscle weighs more than fat or some weird thing like that. So Mary's going to get us started on like, what is that about? Because there might be like, this is something that is talked about a lot. Like, oh, well, muscle weighs more than fat, so you're not fat or what? I don't know, whatever. I don't even understand how it comes about.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question for you, Kristen. This is how I'm going to answer this. I have a question. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
What weighs more?
Are you answering the question with a question? 'Cause that's awesome.
Yes.
Okay.
What weighs more? 1,000-pound dumbbell or 1,000 pounds of feathers?
Mary, gosh, that's a hard one. They weigh the same.
Yeah, no shit. So a pound of muscle weighs the exact same as a pound of fat. The way that came about, I'm assuming, is that muscle is denser than fat. So if we look at a cubic inch of muscle, it takes up less space in the world than a cubic inch of fat. Fat spreads out, and it kind of consumes more area, whereas muscle is very tight and condensed. So fat itself has a density of 0.9 grams per mil, whereas muscle has a density of 1.1 grams per mil. Density, if you are science, if not, I will explain it. Density is mass divided by volume. M over V. It's a broken heart if you look at it and trying to remembering it for your science class. It's mass over volume. So you have to take into account the volume of what you're looking at. You can't just say, oh, muscle weighs more than fat. No, but if you take 10 grams of muscle and 10 grams of fat and divide it by the volume that it takes up, the milliliters that it takes up, that's going to give you your density. That's going to change based on whether it's muscle or fat. So no, muscle does not weigh more than fat. In fact, 1 pound of muscle weighs the same as 1 pound of fat. But 1 pound of muscle takes up less space in the universe than 1 pound of fat. So myth busted.
Busted. Absolutely. That was such a good one. Thanks, Steffi. I loved that one. I was very excited.
Yeah, and
Mary brought the nerd like right out of the gates. I love it.
Yeah, well, it's so stupid because you hear a lot of trainers at the gym who, bless their heart, who don't know what the hell they're talking about. And so they'll say, well, yeah, I'm a little bit thicker now because, muscle weighs more than fat. Like, no, Bro, bro, uh-uh. Have you opened any science book ever or used the Google machine? No, it's not that they weigh different. It's just that their densities are different.
They're
That's okay.
right.
You're real pretty doing your bicep curls. You stay over there, do your bicep curls, stay out of the squat rack.
Definitely no curls in the squat rack. That will get you kicked out.
Well, in my gym, most gyms, they just get an eye roll and they still think that they're the shit. Anyway, if that's you, stop curling in the squat rack. Okay, so that one's busted. That was a quickie but a goodie.
Busted. Yeah.
Now
All
let's get
right. So
into a next one.
the next one is really interesting because it's something that I heard about a lot when I was younger, is that lifting is bad for kids' spines or for their joints in general. Um, which I'm just going to say right now, this was a really timely post. If you don't follow Squat University on Instagram, you should follow them. He actually just made a post about this, like the day that someone asked us this, which I thought was really interesting. So he's got a really good post about this, but I'm going to give you my take on it. So there's been this like long held belief that lifting is going to damage the growth plates in children or anyone with an unmature skeleton. So I have to,
Absolutely.
yeah. So I'm sure we've all heard that, right? Um, Yet we see, there's like youth weightlifters and youth powerlifters that are really impressive and they seem to be functioning really well. So what's the beef?
Ooh, I don't eat beef. What's the
Oh.
tofu?
So I have to give you a little background here. So there's something in the bones called epiphyseal plates. Those are the actual growth plates. They are a growing area of tissue at the ends of bones. By about the age of 21, pretty much all of your growth plates are closed. For some people, that might happen as early as 16. So it's somewhere between 16 and 21 for most people. So the epiphyseal plates are a lot more susceptible to injury than the middle portion of the bone. And injuries to that growing area can cause a misshaped or a shortened bone. And so I think that that's where the worry comes from. But now's when we have to actually get into like the research and what do studies show us. And the interesting thing is that lifting has not been shown at all to increase the risk of growth plate injuries. In fact, testing a 1 rep max lift puts less force on their bodies than they would be exposed to in like everyday training of other sports like
Like
football,
football?
basketball. Yeah, absolutely. So that's not even it's not even a concern in lifting. It's very, very, very rare. There's been like I think one instance ever of this in the research, and it was someone was doing something stupid like with bad technique. I can't remember exactly what it was. So that's the biggest thing, is that children as young as 6 or 7 can start lifting, but technique has to be the primary focus, before loading. So always technique above load.
Well, and that boggles my mind because it's such a stigma, at least in America, that children as a very young age start these very high impact sports like football or, football,
Yeah,
soccer.
football or
Soccer
football.
can
Yeah,
be.
sure.
You have all kinds of risk for all these, anything that's a contact sport. But in terms of weightlifting, as long as you are under the watchful eye of a coach, you're not worried about being caught in a vulnerable moment and being hit. You should be in control. If you get injured, it's probably from poor technique, which a good coach should be able to coach you through. But it's not like you're not going to get concussions in weightlifting for the most part, as long as you're doing things properly. You really shouldn't break anything. Shit happens, but you're less likely to be injured in these sports overall.
For sure. And here's something that's really interesting. So I'm going to go full nerd. If I
Ready?
didn't already, full nerd. There is something called Wolff's Law. Have you ever heard of Wolff's Law?
No.
You haven't heard of it? Okay. So Wolff's Law is a law that states that bone in a healthy person or animal will adapt to the loads under which it's placed.
Ooh, so
So,
does the bone get thick?
yes, it
Thick
gets thicker
bone.
and stronger. Yes, absolutely. Good job. Yeah. So if you are loading on a particular, if the loading on a particular bone increases, the bone's going to remodel itself over time to become stronger and more resistant to that loading. So
Wow.
lifting for all ages helps strengthen your bones. This is why lifting weights is recommended to reduce the risk of osteoporosis. So if kids that lift, they're going to have stronger bones. They're going to be less likely to fractures if they are lifting supplemental to playing rougher sports like football.
So what you're telling me is we take our bodies and we put them in weird situations and our bodies can adapt to this shit. That's what you're telling me.
Crazy, right?
Whoa, biology is
So
weird.
super weird. So here is a really interesting thing to note, though, about Wolff's Law. The inverse of it is true. So if loading on a bone decreases, the bone will become less dense.
Yo,
and then
everyone
weaker.
stop right now. Go to a 1 rep max.
Your bones are getting weaker as we speak.
Weak bone.
Right. So this is where we might see a focal osteoporosis in someone who has been immobilized for a period of time. We may see, so if they had like a full leg cast or something like that, or non-weight bearing for an extended period of time, that the bones of that leg might start showing some osteoporosis, or more likely osteopenia, which is just it's not quite in the osteoporosis territory. It's just like baby osteoporosis.
You said penia and I lost it.
Mary's 14. It's okay.
Oh God. Well, it's okay. So what could be applied to your bones could also be applied to your brain. I'm thinking if the more you use your brain, the better you get at thinking.
Usually, although I'm not really sure. Sometimes I think I dig myself a hole.
Well, you're special. But if you stop using your brain that often, you lose that intelligence. So read your books, kids.
That's right. And it's the same for everything. That whole theory that like our grandmothers used to tell us, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Mm-hmm.
Goes for your brains, your muscles, your bones, all of it.
Listen, as a PhD, Mary,
yes,
the
Dr.
body
Mary
is so amazing in that when you put stress on it in whatever fashion, whether you're sick, whether you're lifting, whether you're trying to get flexible, whatever stress you're putting on your body has a finite amount of energy within itself. And it's going to try to be as efficient as possible to help support those things that you're doing, whether it's lifting, whether you're injured. A lot of your body's nutrients and machinery goes to that injury site to fix whatever it is. Your immune system, when you're sick, your body's pumping all the energy to your immune system. Your body's going to allocate energy to things that needs to happen. It's such an efficient, amazing machine. And I think that we take it for granted so much, like
for sure.
We think that our body is just this frail thing, and our body is so resilient to so many things. As long as we take care of it and stretch and eat properly and sleep enough, you're going to be fine.
For sure going to be fine.
End discussion.
So that myth is busted.
Yeah.
Children's spines and joints will not be damaged by lifting unless they are lifting with improper technique.
What about like spine compression? I could see how people could worry about that.
Well, right. So the spines, the vertebrae have growth plates as well. Okay. And again, they're as long as it's not in a fashion that's going to put like undue stress on them. Yeah, there's never been a case reported of this.
Right. So people shouldn't be squatting and then in the middle of squat be full on tackled.
That would probably be bad. They probably shouldn't like twist in the bottom of a squat. That might be bad.
Or do quarter
But
squats because
quarter squats, you're definitely going to die.
absolutely. So
Yeah.
that's busted. Like,
Busted.
as long as your child is lifting, I would say supervised and someone who understands proper technique, your child should be fine. Your child shouldn't be injured. And in fact, it's going to be good for your child.
For sure. And I actually want to go back to that spine part because you did bring up a really good point. And so I said that the vertebrae have growth plates. They have epiphyseal plates on them. They're a little bit different than in the long bones, but they're there. And then in between the vertebrae, we have the intervertebral discs. And those are, if you want to think of it like a jelly-filled donut, they're shock absorbers of the spine. Kids that have a lot of impact, so like downward or upward force onto their spine that happens rapidly, so as in jumping, so gymnastics really comes to mind, and football, because they often take really hard hits. Now they can get a herniation of the disc actually into that end plate of the bone. And again, it's a painful condition. It's not, and becomes a self-limiting thing. And then once that child reaches adulthood, they'll have a little misshaped vertebrae. You can see it on an x-ray. I've seen plenty of them. And they're usually have no problems in the future because of it.
Yeah.
But that can happen. That has not been shown to happen even under heavy squats.
Yeah. As a PSA, I would recommend more so that kids do any type of weightlifting or non-contact sport because it's not just the bones you have to worry about, it's their brain.
Yeah.
There's some scary documentaries out there about football players.
Yeah, that's really, really huge
Any of
problem.
you interested, just search that shit on Google. There's all kinds of horrible things. But anyway, that's not
Did you ever watch the movie with Will Smith about CTE?
No.
Oh my gosh. I'm drawing a blank as to the name of it right now. I think it's just called like concussion. I can't remember. It's really good though.
I'll have to check it out because that terrifies me. I mean, you can kind of mend a bone and you may not be able to do what you need to do, but man, if you're 30 and your brain isn't working, oh my God.
It's awful.
That's horrible. Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to make this depressing, but I just made me think of that.
Well, let's cheer it up with talking about one of my favorite things ever.
What is that?
Well, someone asked us about the quote unquote anabolic window.
We got to be in an anabolic state always.
And I can only imagine she was talking about the whole like have to get your protein shake in immediately following training.
2.5 seconds after training.
That 2.5 seconds is too long. Mary, that window's closing.
Oh my God. Do I need a feeding tube in my throat? Protein as I work out?
As you work out. Yeah. So, well, we're going to talk about that here in a second, actually. But okay. So here's where this post-exercise anabolic window comes from is that it's a strategy designed to maximize the exercise-induced muscular adaptations and to facilitate repair of damaged tissues. That comes straight from the Journal of International Society of Sport. I just completely fucked that up. The
Nice.
JISSN. Oh, wow. I mean, I'm not a member or anything. I just...
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. If you guys ever want to read some really good research, if you're nerdy, I highly recommend reading the journal put out by the International Society of Sports Nutrition. Really good information.
Can we talk about the stigma on the word nerd?
I use nerd like a good thing. Like I'm proud of being a nerd.
I know, but I hate the name. Like we're just all intelligent people wanting to better our lives and understand what's going on in the world.
Okay.
And if you are not a nerd, quote unquote, like, do you just walk through your life not understanding anything?
I don't know.
Okay, that's my sidebar. I don't. You want to trigger me? Call me a nerd.
Mary's been triggered.
Triggered.
Okay.
Sorry.
So back to this anabolic window. So theoretically, consuming the proper ratios of nutrients during that post-exercise time, which they used to think was only an hour, it initiates the rebuilding of those damaged tissues. And people thought that it did so in like this super compensated fashion that enhances both your body composition and your exercise performance. So here's the deal. Your tissues are more sensitive to the uptake of protein and carbohydrates post exercise. This is a fact. We know this to be true. It used to be postulated that the window of time was only open for an hour. In reality, your tissues remain sensitive to the uptake of nutrients for up to 24 hours post exercise, though it's at a diminishing rate as time goes on. So what researchers are discovering is that there's this like peri-training time, so meaning surrounding training, so before, during, and after training, that really is what's important. So it's not so much like this post-exercise window, it's this like peri-training period of time. So if you don't eat protein before you train, then you want to make sure that you eat it afterwards. If you have protein before, you don't necessarily have to have it after, but the research suggests that there's no harm in having protein after, and that the total daily intake of protein is what is of utmost importance. So basically the post-training protein consumption is like another opportunity to get in your daily protein allotment. But just like don't freak out. Don't freak out if you don't get it in, right? Just it's not a huge deal. But we definitely know that it may be beneficial and that you need some protein somewhere in there, like somewhere within the 3 to 5 hour range of pre to post training. So
yeah. Wouldn't you argue that carbs are very important to get within an hour or two? See, that's I think what you need to be more concerned about as a avid lifter. Protein, yes. I mean, I get protein pre and post, but some days I don't get it post for the most part, and I will make sure that I at least get some fast acting carbs. We did an episode on this, and I'm blanking on what title it is, but if you're if you're interested in this, you want to understand pre and post workout, I will link that in the description below, and you can go listen to that if you haven't already. But yeah, the protein is important, but the carbs are really what you want.
Well, they're both super important. They're both super important, and they're both super important in that peri-training time period. It's just that if you have a good pre-training meal of carbs and protein, you don't necessarily have to worry so much about getting it in post-training, or vice versa. However, I think if you don't have some sort of food before training, you're not going to train as well. So this is one place where I think that you really have to look at the research, and then you also as a clinician have to say, what is best for my athletes and how are we going to put this into practice? So I know what the research says on all of this. I literally sit at home most nights and read nutrition journals. Like that's what I do for fun. And I still suggest that my clients consume some post-training protein and carbs whenever possible. I just don't want people to freak out if they have to go to work immediately after training and like forgot to bring their protein or forgot to bring their meal or whatever. Their protein shake spilled on the floorboards of their car and now their car stinks horribly. and be more worried about your car stinking than about like losing your gains, because that's not really going to happen. But I do think that it is it if you're looking to get
optimal
5 or 10% improvement, exactly what can you optimize? I think that it's a pretty good strategy, only because the research, at least right now, is not showing us that it's going to do you any harm. And we know how much protein and carbohydrates and fat you need in a day. So it's a really good opportunity. But as you were alluding to, the carbohydrates post training really help with recovery, and it has to be the right carbohydrates. But
Yes.
that really helps with recovery. So, I don't know whether we say this myth is busted or like.
I think it's busted in a sense that you don't need to immediately consume these things. It is important for you to have a post-training meal in mind whenever you're done training. But if you have a day where you don't get it within an hour or 2 hours, don't freak out. But if you on the average get it in within an hour after training, that's ideal. You don't have to be sipping on a shake as you leave the gym. Like, that's absurd. You don't need to bring your protein shake to the gym. Stop it. Unless you want to. That's fine. But it's not going to hurt you to take your 20-minute drive home or whatever and then make something that's high carb, moderate protein for your post workout. So it's busted in the sense that you don't need it to be an intense, oh my God, I need it right now. But I'd say it's confirmed in that you generally want a post training meal.
For sure. And here's the thing that since we're talking about the research, that I can't stress enough is that if you read some article that is summarizing,
An N of one.
yeah, and if it's summarizing some new research that came out, find that research article and read about it. Maybe you don't read the whole thing, read the abstract, read the summary, and especially pay attention to the methods, who the people were in the study, because so much of this information is done on people that are training for body composition changes, as opposed to it might be people that are strength training, but strength training does not necessarily mean training as a strength athlete. Those two can be very different things. And the needs of those two groups of people can be extremely different. And so, I've been seeing a lot in the research, a lot of summaries of the research saying, well, this really helps with, strength training and protein and blah, blah, all this stuff. And then you go and you look at it, and it was people who they aren't training for performance. And we can't necessarily follow everything that they're saying because they aren't concerned about what happens with their performance.
Exactly.
They're concerned about what's happening with their body composition, which I'm not saying we should be ignoring that part, but we have to make sure that we're meeting our performance goals, or what in the world's the point of what we're doing? Absolutely.
And we're just a different group of people. There's nothing wrong with having aesthetic goals. This podcast is for female strength athletes by female strength athletes. So our primary goal is getting strong. And this is a thing that we can do to optimize what we do to get strong. So that's just is what it is. If you want to train for aesthetics, you do you, man. I don't care. Like, I want you to be happy. I want you to do what you want to do. And if you think that getting within that quick window, because you're probably hungry if you're training for aesthetics, then that's fine. Like, you need to eat. But if you're a strength athlete, you're trying to get strong, and that's it.
Right. Well, here's the other thing but you just made me think about the post training window, whatever. I mean, if I'm training for 2.5 hours and I had my meal 2 to 3 hours before I went to the gym, when I leave the gym, I am starving.
Hungry AF.
Homegirl needs some food.
Yeah. So it is the first thing on my mind when I get in my car and get to my house. So I'm not going to skip it.
No, definitely not.
No. Like right now, I got home from the gym, I think an hour ago. Got some dinner waiting for me. I took an ice bath. And I'm going to go eat some food because I'm hungry.
We're keeping Mary from her food, yo. We should wrap this up.
I'm so happy to be here. I love busting myths. If you guys have any myths you want busted, you hear something stupid while you're at the gym, or some bro decides to come up to you with some astounding, wonderful knowledge, wisdom, we can help you determine if that is wise or not. And as always, if you're not already, make sure you're part of our Facebook group page, Women in Strength Athlete Resource. It's a great resource page for specifically female strength athletes. We also have a Patreon page. It supports the podcast and helps us continue to do what we are doing. Make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast. We are on Apple Podcasts, which many of you listen to, but we're also on Spotify. So if you prefer Spotify, there you go. We're there. And as always, keep making those strong. I don't know where I'm going with this. Get strong.
Get strong.
Get strong. Eat food.
Get be happy.
We love you guys.
All right. See you later.
Bye.